Welcome to episode 72 of the 3M Fear podcast. John Bell was all alone walking through his cornfield near his house when he noticed something strange. Sitting in the middle of the cornfield was a large dog with the head of a rabbit. Now, John had seen a lot of animals, but this was unusual. It looked misshapen, as if its bones had been broken and reset in awkward angles. It was a very weird animal. He kept staring at it, waiting for it to do something. The dog almost looked human-like. And don't forget, it had the head of a rabbit. Now, John was not one of those people whom you could easily scare, but the sight of the dog made him uneasy. Out of fear, he pulled out his rifle and fired at the creature. The dog ran, disappearing into the distant tree line. John marched to the spot where the dog had once been sitting, and he expected to see the corn pressed down, as if a heavy animal had been sitting there, but it looked as if no one was there. Everything was normal. No tracks, no disturbed corn, nothing.
Hello and welcome to the 3am Fear podcast. I'm Nikita Ferrao, mystery and thriller author. On this podcast, I talk about real crimes and real people. Due to the graphic nature of some of this content, listener discretion is advised. You can find the episode show notes on my website 3amfear.com. Let's get started.
In 1804, a man named John Bell felt that a small farm in North Carolina was no longer enough for his growing family. So, he, along with his wife Lucy and their 6 children, packed up all their things, got onto the wagons, and traveled for over 600 miles west. They finally settled in a vast 1,000-acre patch of land along the Red River in northern Tennessee. This area, known as Robertson County, was extremely rural and did not have a lot of people living there. Now, like many other families living there, the Bells were expected to work hard. They had to build everything from scratch. John Bell was perfect for this kind of hard work. He had grown up on a farm and he knew that he would never give up. He was known for his generosity and he was very good with people. Back in North Carolina, he and his kind-hearted wife Lucy would often open their doors for anyone who needed a place to stay or maybe just wanted a hot meal. John even gave money to people who wanted help. Now that they came to this new place, John wasted no time. He began clearing trees from his land and used that lumber to build a 1.5-story log house on a hill near the Red River. Now, as I said, there were only a few locals living there, and the river was a popular spot for picnics and fishing. The Bell family members would often run into these people, and they quickly became so popular that everyone knew and loved this family. For many years, the Bell family lived a very happy life here. Most mornings, John would be the first person to wake up. He would then wake his children up, and they would get ready and then walk their way through the woods to the school, and they would come back before sunset. When the kids were at school, John and his older sons worked on the land, built structures to develop the settlement, and often made boats to transport their farm's tobacco and meats south for trade. During their time in Robertson County, John and Lucy welcomed 3 more children into their family. However, the life in this beautiful and isolated place was going to take a dark turn. It all started with these unexplainable noises in the night: scratching, knocking, and faint whispers. The sounds would grow louder and louder, and soon the family could not ignore them. As the Bell family settled into their new life in Robertson County, their oldest children began to get married, and they started building their own families, their own homes, and everything was nice. Until one summer day in 1817, 13 years after the Bell family had first come to this place. John Bell was all alone walking through his cornfield near his house when he noticed something strange. Sitting in the middle of the cornfield was a large dog with the head of a rabbit. Now, John had seen a lot of animals, but this was unusual. It looked misshapen, as if its bones had been broken and reset in awkward angles. It was a very weird animal. He kept staring at it, waiting for it to do something. The dog almost looked human-like. And don't forget, it had the head of a rabbit. Now, John was not one of those people whom you could easily scare, but the sight of the dog made him uneasy. Out of fear, he pulled out his rifle and fired at the creature. The dog ran, disappearing into the distant tree line. John marched to the spot where the dog had once been sitting, and he expected to see the corn pressed down, as if a heavy animal had been sitting there, but it looked as if no one was there. Everything was normal. No tracks, no disturbed corn, nothing. John was confused. He convinced himself that maybe he had seen something else, maybe he was hallucinating, maybe he was overthinking, and that it was nothing. John was not the only person in the family who had witnessed something. His daughter Betsy saw a girl in a green dress swinging from the limb of an oak tree. Dean, a slave belonging to the family, said that he was being followed by a large black dog. Could this all have been a coincidence? At night, after the family had gone to bed, they would hear knocking sounds on the walls of their house. Whenever they got up to check, the knocking would stop, and then it would start on the other side of the house. It was as if someone was trying to mess with them, and the knocking would go on in circles. If they would stand at one side, the knocking would come in the other, and if they would go to the other side, the knocking would start here. The knocking was just the beginning. Soon, the Bell family was tortured by a series of unexplainable events. Objects started to move on their own, and strange noises filled the house. The family could even hear these faint whispers that seemed to come out of nowhere, and sometimes they could hear these loud, disembodied voices in the middle of the night. The haunting presence grew bolder, physically attacking the family members. John, who had always been very strong and healthy, began becoming sick. He started getting these sudden sharp pains, and he would just be weak, as if someone was draining the life out of him. Now, talking about the Bell Witch, it is said that this witch had something against John. It mocked him, cursed him, and even tortured him. At one point, the family was thinking that it was some sort of an animal that was maybe knocking, banging, or scratching. But John soon realized that it was not the work of an animal, but it might have been a person. He believed that maybe it was not a witch or a ghost, but someone from town was hiding in the woods, just waiting for them to go to sleep. And as soon as they went to sleep, this person would go, run, bang, knock, and just run away. He was determined to catch this prankster, and so John instructed his family not to tell anyone about the tapping sounds. He believed that whoever this prankster was from town, and so he told his family not to mention to anyone that there was someone doing these tapping sounds in the middle of the night. He wanted to keep this a secret. For several weeks, the tapping continued. Each time, John would lie waiting for the prankster, and as soon as this tapping noise would come, he would rush outside. But no one was there. He tried this over and over again, going as fast as he could, just to open the door and see when could he catch this prankster. But he couldn't. It was as if this person was coming, knocking, and just disappearing into thin air. One night, the knocking turned into loud bangs, shaking of walls in the house, and the family got together in fear and realized this was not the work of just one person. This was something much worse. After the tapping sounds, the family members started hearing these whispers, these barely audible murmurs, as if these whispers were coming from the walls, inside the walls. As the nights went on, the whispers grew louder and louder. The Bell children were the first to experience physical attacks. They woke up in the middle of the night with scratches and bruises, unable to explain how they got them. Objects in the house began to move on their own. Plates would just slide off the table and smash on the floor. Chairs would topple over, and the doors would slam shut when no one was near them. By now, John Bell's condition was so bad that he was almost bedridden. One particularly scary night, the Bell Witch made her most violent attack ever. The family was sitting together in the living room when suddenly it became freezing cold. The lights started to flicker and the walls shook. The Bell Witch's voice echoed through the house. It was as if a huge growl. Furniture flung across the room and the family was thrown to the floor by an unseen force. As they lay there paralyzed in fear, the entity's voice hissed. "This is only the beginning," she said. On Sunday night in May of 1818, a year after John had seen that scary dog in the cornfield, and a few months after this knocking sounds in the walls began, the Bell family faced a new problem. 4 of John's sons were asleep in their bedroom when they woke up by the sound that sent chills down their spine. It was a rat eating at their bedpost. The 2 oldest brothers who were sleeping on the lower bunks immediately got up, and as soon as their feet touched the floor, the sound stopped. They searched everywhere, but they couldn't find the rat. The bedposts were not eaten into. It was as if there was no rat. But when they got back into bed, the sound started again. They jumped out of bed again. But once again, the room felt silent. This cycle would continue all night, leaving the boys exhausted and terrified. The following night, the same thing happened again. When they went to sleep, the sound started, and when they jumped out of bed, the noise would stop. They could feel it, they could hear it. There were rats under their bed. There were rats eating away their beds. But they just couldn't see those rats. It had been months now since the Bell family got a good night's sleep. Those knocking sounds, rat-like gnawing, and terrifying gasping sounds. They just couldn't sleep. John Bell had begged his family not to tell anyone what was happening because he wanted to catch the person who was behind this. But now, he couldn't wait anymore. He finally decided to trust his neighbor, who agreed to spend the night at the Bell house. But just one night in that house, the neighbor started hearing the tapping noises, the gnawing, the gasping. He was so scared that he ran away in the middle of the night and said he would never step foot in that house again. That is when the entire place came to know about the haunting. The townspeople were now afraid that whatever was happening in the Bell house could happen to them. But at the same time, they were equally supportive. Word started to spread that there was a witch, the Bell Witch, who was now haunting this place. People from far and wide would come to see this witch, and that is when the ghost started to speak. When asked, "Who are you and what do you want?" it replied weakly, "I am a spirit. I was once very happy, but have been disturbed." The spirit gave different reasons to why this disturbance happened. In fact, at one point it even sent 2 people in search of a buried treasure, but it was not there. When asked about the Bible, the entity knew the Bible very well and liked to argue about religion. For fun, the witch even gossiped about activities that were happening in the other houses. It was a very weird scenario. Was the witch haunting them or being their friend? They weren't sure. At one point, the witch would trouble them, and at the other, the witch would be like their best friend. John Johnston, a son of James, came up with a test for the witch that only his family would know. He asked the spirit what his Dutch step-grandmother in North Carolina would say to the slaves if she thought they did something wrong. The witch replied in his grandmother's accent, "Hut tut, what has happened now?" There are many such stories like this. Now, I can't go into every single angle, so I'm just taking one angle, but there are many such stories like this. The family members, people around them, everyone tried different variations. Everyone tried different ways to find out what did this witch want. But unfortunately, no one knew what the witch wanted. Was it revenge? Was it support? No one knows. No one even knew why the witch was haunting the house or the family in the first place. Sometimes the spirit was so kind that she would even call Lucy, John Bell's wife, the most perfect woman to walk the earth. The witch gave Lucy fresh fruit and sang hymns to her, showing respect to John Bell Jr. As the months passed by, the townspeople noticed something strange about John. He began to act weird. His eyes would gloss over, his jaw would slacken, and his face would start twitching. These episodes grew more and more severe, leaving John in a shell of his former self. He would be in his bedroom, sitting on hours on end, just staring at the wall in silence. The Bell family started to feel like a prisoner in their own home. The townspeople began to suspect that one of their neighbors, Kate Batts, was behind this haunting. Now she was known for this unpleasant attitude, and Kate was an easy target. So whenever something related to the haunting came up, people would automatically say, "This is Kate who is doing it." But Kate would always go on to say that she had nothing to do with this. By September of 1820, the Bell family had been suffering for almost 3 years. John's condition got worse, and he told his wife Lucy that he believed that someone or something was torturing him to death. One day, as John grew sicker, his daughter Esther went to gather eggs from the hen house. As she walked across the lane, she heard footsteps behind her. Turning around, she saw a woman dressed in black, head down, walking towards the Bell house. Esther had not seen this woman before, and she found it quite odd. Esther turned away from the strange woman and continued to the hen house, collected the eggs, and then turned back to her house. When she came out of the hen house, she saw that the woman in black was still walking, and she was now much closer to the Bell house. As Esther walked closer, she realized that the woman was from her neighborhood. She called out a friendly hello, but the woman did not respond. Instead, she kept on walking. Feeling uneasy, Esther walked faster, keeping on calling out to that woman, who continued to ignore her. When Esther was about 15 feet away, she stopped, staring at the woman's back. Suddenly, the woman stopped too. She reached up, removed her bonnet, and let her long black hair tumble down. Without turning around, she began running her fingers through her hair, combing it out. Esther watched, puzzled, as the woman's hand moved faster and faster. Suddenly, Esther realized, in horror, the woman was not just combing her hair, she was ripping it out of her head. Esther could hear the hair being torn from the woman's scalp. And soon, on the ground, she could see those tiny clumps of hair. Terrified, Esther ran past the woman and into the house and locked the door behind her. Inside, Esther called out to one of her sisters, and together they looked out of the window, and the woman was still there, ripping pieces of her hair. Suddenly, Esther made eye contact with the woman, who now stopped. She froze her hand, still in her hair, staring directly at Esther and her sister. Slowly, the woman lowered her hands and continued to stare, then suddenly turned around and walked around the side of the property, disappearing from view. Esther and her sister stood at the window, hearts pounding, unsure of what they had just seen. They both screamed in fear, racing from the front window to the side window, following the woman. They watched as the woman climbed over their fence and entered the side property with 3 children following her. Esther and her sister had never seen these children before, but they were walking closer to the house. The woman and the children walked into a grove of trees on the Bell property, turning to face Esther and her sister once they climbed into the trees. From there, they began to sway, causing the trees to bend and wave. The woman and the children were on the trees. Just then, Esther's husband came through the front door. She urgently called him to come and look from the window, but he couldn't see any woman or any children. All he could see were moving trees. Realizing her husband could not see what they were seeing, both sisters panicked. Their screams filled the house as the husband tried to understand what was happening. The 3 of them raced from the window, running out the back door, around the side yard, to see the woman and the children. When they reached the trees, there was nothing. No woman, no children. They just disappeared. Not long after this, in October of 1820, John Bell and one of his sons were out for a walk on the farm. Suddenly, John stopped, throwing his hands up to his face as if defending himself from someone who was attacking him. His face went slack and his body started moving in positions that were not normal. His back started to hurt as if it was about to break. John's son, who was witnessing this, rushed to help his father. He tried his best, but he couldn't. John screamed, and the sound was so loud and unnatural, it seemed as if it was just coming out of nowhere. And suddenly, the scream stopped, and John collapsed to the ground, returning to normal. Laying on the ground, John began to cry, telling his son that he didn't have much time left. His son helped him up, and they walked back to the house in silence. John went straight to bed, leaving his family confused. A few weeks later, on the morning of December 19, 1820, John Bell didn't come down for breakfast. Concerned, his family went up to his bedroom to check on him. They found him lying still, breathing, but unresponsive. No matter what they did, they couldn't wake him up. One of John's sons rushed to the medicine cabinet in the house, and when he opened it, all the medicine was gone, and in its place there was a strange glass vial containing a smoky dark liquid. No one had ever seen that liquid before. The family immediately called for a doctor. The doctor came, checked John, but he didn't know why John was not waking up. He seemed normal. The family showed him this mysterious liquid, and the doctor said, "Go and test it on a farm animal and see what happens." The family found the stray cat and force-fed it some of the liquid. Within minutes, the cat was dead. The Bell family swore they had no idea where this liquid came from or what this liquid was. The doctor also had no idea what this liquid was. Despite the doctor's best efforts, John never woke up. The following morning, he passed away in his bed. After John's death, the strange occurrences at the Bell house stopped. Most of the townspeople said that they could see these strange lights floating around the house. They could hear some strange singing voices, but other than that, the haunting seemed to have reduced. John's wife Lucy continued to live in the house until her death in 1838. Today, nothing remains of the Bell house except for an underground cave on their property. People swear that whatever was torturing the Bell family came from the cave. The legend of the Bell Witch, the dark force, everything scares people even to this day. Today, anyone can visit the Bell property. The family that owns the original Bell family farm offers tour of the property. You can pay a small amount of money and take a tour of the house. There is of course a replica of the Bell house and not the real house, but you can also check out the cave. So what do you think overall about the Bell Witch haunting? A big thank you to all my fellow listeners who have been listening and supporting this episode. Your reviews, your listens mean a lot. If you love this episode, if you love the stories that I put out, then please do leave a rating on whichever podcasting platform you're listening from. It would really mean the world to me. Other than this, I also have a YouTube and an Instagram page. I'll link it in the description. Do check it out. I have different stories on Instagram, and I'm planning to put out some short horror stories on YouTube, so do subscribe to my YouTube channel and stay tuned. I am also an author, love fiction stories. If you want to check out my free fiction book, I'll link it in the description. I'll also link my other account in the description where I talk about fiction writing, travel, and I also will soon start sharing fiction stories. So stay tuned. So do follow me there. Thank you so much for everything. That's all for this week. Stay kind, stay safe, and see you next week.